Have you ever had troubles with bosses but hate dying in 2 hits? Then fear not, we have the Pinpoint Vulca. Gambit trying to shoot you? Just shoot him back. Nemesis chasing after you? She can chase those dreams instead. Freya walking towards you menacingly? Not anymore. Don't feel like waiting for the Scorched King to waddle over to you? Then, just run at him across the map like a Kizuna player on 10 HP in a dream. Except, you won't die from a paper cut. If you like the sound of that, then this is one of the builds for you. This is my go-to build for running ones against any bosses in this game, but can be played in a very selfless way at the same time compared to other DPS builds. So let me address the elephant in the room, starting with the first perk, which is Overwatch on Standby, most commonly known as the Vulca. I want you to think of this weapon as a TAC 590 shotgun that does 3 times more damage, but the drawback is the reload and accuracy of it. The Vulca pretty much makes every other gun look like a joke in comparison if you can get behind zooming in on every shot. The next perk is Pinpoint Precision, which triples the damage as long as you wait a second before each shot. This starts to get absolutely silly when combined with the Vulca because it turns a 1500 damage body shot into a 4500 damage body shot. And not many things can live that, especially when you shoot them in the head. Every perk after this is personal preference. You have 10 points left. Go wild. But I'm still going to recommend the ones I use, which is geared to a more aggressive playstyle. Starting off with Dexterous, mainly used for shotgun swapping if you're not planning to use 2 Vulcas. I usually run the TAC 590 as the primary horde clearing weapon, and the Vulca to blow up anything that takes more than 2 shots from the TAC 590. Next is Steel Padding. Have I told you how many times that extra 35 HP saved me from a bad situation or dumb mistake I made? Then there is hWorld. I know it, and you know it by now. It's useful for reinforcing teammates and uncorrupting anchors. Now we have leg implants. Great to have in general, since being immune to slows is nice for getting to where you need to be. More importantly, it allows you to easily kite bosses if you plan to get close to them. The final perk I use is Full House. Full House is specifically good for the setup we are going for since it allows our Vulca to hit important breakpoints like 2-shotting Gambit under certain conditions in our build. Speaking of those conditions, let's talk about our specializations, starting off with Priority Survival. This allows us to be self-sufficient if things go wrong and there are no teammates in close proximity, or if you want to deal with a certain situation yourself before it becomes a problem. The next specialization is Dispersion Unit. More often than not, I find teammates huddled next to each other, so I am usually able to heal 2 or more people with the stabilizer. But more importantly, the range increase makes it so much easier to actually hit people that are moving. It also allows you to heal teammates through places that you wouldn't expect. The next specialization is Adrenaline Shot. Not only is the 30 damage resistance extremely nice for anyone to have, it sets up the perfect conditions to kill bosses really quickly from that extra 50% damage. To go into more detail, our current headshot damage with the Vulca turns from 7,762.5 damage on a headshot crit to 9,832.5 damage. So through hazard 80 to 100, this build allows you to 2-shot Gambit, who has 19,250 HP, 3-shot Nemesis, who has 26,250 HP, 4-shot Freya, who has 31,500 HP, and 5-shot Scorched King, who has 45,500 HP. The last specialization is Protocol of War. This literally solves everyone's sustainability problems, although it does require you or the linked person to be dealing damage through guns or melee weapons. The best part of this is that this buff lasts 25 seconds. This allows you and the Link teammates to focus on actually killing stuff rather than needing to replace their armor or replacing a PMS. The starting loadout I use is Spare Mags for the primary slot, the Asmania for the secondary slot, and honestly whatever for the auxiliary slot. The equipment I highly recommend is 2 Enforcer Nano Grenades for uncorrupting or crowd control. The final loadout I use is the TAC-590 in the primary slot, and the Vulca for the second primary slot. Although if you're feeling exotic, 2 Vulcas are also a viable option. The secondary does not matter, and the melee is personal preference, but I highly recommend using gauntlets, K2 blade, or the stun baton, specifically to dash kite against enemies like Nemesis, Freya, and the BSD operatives. Then for the equipment, I just use Enforcer Nano Grenades and combat stims. So, how do you play this build? This build is definitely a mid to backliner, since you are going to be busy using that stabilizer to buff people and restocking it. Although you certainly have enough damage to be a main DPS and be a support at the same time if you can manage it. The reason it's not a good idea to be a frontliner is because you can't just hold down an area by yourself no matter how good your aim is, and there are better people for that job. I have 2 modes for playing this build. The first mode is helping my team at the shop or helping with uncorrupting anchors if the runners are having trouble. I usually just try to link as many teammates as possible to maintain uptime on adrenaline and leech buff for them. Usually I try to heal anyone I see with low armor or HP as a priority over anyone else. Even buying and using my own TAC restocks often so I could have more uptime for my team, because I never found myself needing adrenaline unless I wanted to kill a boss. The second mode is being a hunting hound, chasing and eliminating bosses that spawn even in Hazard 100. I will literally go out of my way to go across the map to activate anchors and shoot at the boss if there are no other DPS that are capable of doing so. I'm going to show you a Stealth Hazard 80 boss kill to somewhat walk you through the process of what you should be doing with this build. So right at the start of Hazard 80, make sure you have a TAC restock and a PMS placed in a good spot. You are going to be the person to replace the PMS and restocks for you and your team. Since your crowd control isn't amazing, I highly recommend throwing out Enforcer Nano Grenades whenever you can to at least kill the small stuff in some areas. Then the moment you see the boss's health bars, buff as many of your teammates as you can, and then buff yourself shortly after. The timing may vary since it is very hard to predict when they will teleport. But once you buff yourself, start shooting the boss with your Vulca until it's dead. Then you repeat the process again of replacing any missing PMS or restocks. Also, don't forget to rebuff your teammates if you don't see the linked buff anymore. Then you keep repeating this until every one of the BSD operatives are dead. For Hazard 100, your role is probably the most dangerous one and can make Hazard 100 way easier. You are going to be the boss hunter and roamer for the team, only if there are no other players that can deal with bosses in a timely manner. At the start of Hazard 100, I recommend staying with the team. Do not go out of your way to attempt to hunt any bosses until the anchors closest to the shop are done. Just las marker any bosses to weaken them so you can kill them later. Once you kill any bosses and used up your las markers, make sure to get more las markers and regroup with your team to link as many of them as possible. Don't be afraid to use the las markers to get out of tight positions. You are going to go back to the shop anyways. If you were to make a choice, make sure to heal and buff the anchor uncorruptor since you will almost have no chance of winning if they die. Once your team has 2 or 3 anchors uncorrupted, it's your job to activate them and cycle las markers around the map to let you and your team breathe a little bit. Since, as a reminder, activating anchors stalls spawns for 10 seconds on Hazard 100. Do not activate the anchor near the extraction point if there are less than 2 minutes left, since you will need it to clear the extraction point with a las marker in the last 10 seconds. If you see a boss spawn, that is your responsibility. So go hunt them down. If you are not confident in doing so, stay with your team, but I have had many cases where my team has lost because we waited for the boss to come to us. Just remember to link your teammates and restock whenever you can. Then continue on your way on activating anchors, using las markers, and hunting bosses. When you have killed all the bosses on the map and activated the anchors, come back to where your team is and hold out with them. As the timer reaches its last 10 seconds, activate the final anchor and las marker the map. Then you can finally relax on the extraction point. This video was supposed to be made a couple weeks ago, but better late than ever, so I'll see y'all later. Probably.